Never picked anyone on the basis of one performance. A lot of young players came in when I was captain of India because of all what was happening around in Indian cricket, the likes of Virendra Sehwag, Harbhajan Singh, Yuvraj Singh. And when the selectors would come to you and say that this fellow is good, the first question I asked was, how long have you seen him? How long have you allowed him an opportunity to perform in domestic cricket? Because I firmly believe that if I picked someone, I wouldn't let him go straight away. You don't pick him straight away, and once you pick him, you back him to perform. You want an environment where there is no fear of failure, because I think that's the most important part of leadership. When a young boy walks into the dressing room or walks into a big multinational like Dell and sees the big professionals from all over the world coming in and interviewing you, expecting the profits at the end of the year on the balance sheet from you, there is a fear of failure. What is it if I can't? That's the biggest fear all professionals have, whether it's a sportsman, whether it's a corporate professional. What is if I fail? And I think that's the biggest challenge of a leader, is to make sure that you create the right situation where as a player, as an employee, your mind just gets off from all other aspects except your job at hand. For us, it was about the cricket ball. As a batsman, when you walked out to bat in the middle, once you crossed that rope, it was about the red cherry or the white cricket ball, whichever you played. So for me, the most important thing was when I picked a young guy, I took the fear of failure about him. It was about telling him that, listen, I will give you 4 games, 5 games. And it's not going to be decided overnight, but you have to give me performance after 4 or 5 games. He should not think about what's the captain thinking. He should not worry about what's the selector thinking. He should not worry about what happens if he gets a good delivery up front from Glenn McGrath. Because you need to take away all that insecurities out of that person and create a situation for him where he delivers, where he believes that I have support, I know this is where I need to go, and this is the time I have. And I think that's a very important aspect of creating a good team. It's about security. Not to an extent where it goes to a situation where you take your position for granted, but it's a balance which you have to strike between you and your important team member, that you would get certain amount of opportunities, but you will have to deliver from that. And at the same time, you won't be dropped over one failure. I've seen a lot of terrific cricketers in Indian cricket in the past, when I was playing as a player, come in, get picked, play 1 or 2 games, and then be left out and their careers are over. I think that's a huge area where we all as leaders need to work on. Now when we appoint a group of people, when we are leaders of a group of people, and it worked so much in our environment, in our sport, it was the trust which the players had on the captain. I keep saying this word trust because we lived in a life where we were selected, and it's the same thing about you. You get selected by your bosses, you get selected by your of people in the higher departments than you, and we needed to go and report to the selection committee. As a captain, you needed to go and select a team. So there were guys who would miss out because you would only get to pick 15. And the challenge we faced in our sport was that we had only one team to play. Today, most of you, if you don't work for an X company, can go and get an equal amount of job in the Y or Z or any number of companies. But the challenge, an athlete or a sportsman who played for his country, was that there was only one team. And everybody wanted to be a part of that side. And there, if a leader wanted to create a team, he had to create a trust between his players, between his group and himself, because no one performs all the time. No one plays I wouldn't say no one, not all play for long periods of time. There are some who play for 15 years, there are some who play for 7 years. So there's always a process of selection, rejection, picking boys and dropping boys. And at the same time, you had to bring those boys back into the squad. So it was about creating a trust between you and the players, because the players knew that you had to go and sit in the selection committee meeting and select their careers. So if you felt that somebody wasn't good enough, it was about letting him know and speaking the same thing in front of the selectors. Because if you didn't do that, there's a certain mistrust which definitely starts creeping among the team, because the word of mouth spreads. There are friends in the group who get rejected, would speak to a friend, and the selectors, and they all try and find a way out to say that, listen, your captain has said this, and that's when the real problem starts in a group. When you come and say something different to your employee or your player and say a completely different thing in the selection committee meeting. So trust is key. Trust is something which needs to develop over a span of time. I'll relate a small incident. And we were touring England in 2002. I was captain, and we were playing Sri Lanka in Edgbaston. And we had someone like Virendra Sehwag who only knew one way to play. He knew only one way to bat. I remember that incident. We all speak about the NatWest final, and England got 325. And I remember walking down the Lord's staircase. We were going out to bat, chasing 325, and I heard Virendra Sehwag singing. He was just walking past me, and he was singing a Hindi song. So I stopped for a minute and said, "What's up, Viru?" He said, "No, everything's fine." And we had lost 4 finals before that, so I was pretty disappointed at the lunchtime that England had got another 300 and we had to chase 300. We might not get it. And it was another final we had to lose. And there was one guy walking down next to me, whistling away. So I told him, the day you become captain, I'll do the same thing when we get down the staircase of the Lord's balcony. I remember Virendra Sehwag in Edgbaston, and we was chasing a very small total against Sri Lanka, about 209 or 10 to win that game on a seaming pitch. And I had got out early, and I came back into the dressing room and was watching the game. And Virendra Sehwag kept on hitting the ball in the air. John Wright was sitting next to me, and he's one of the most nervous persons I have ever met. When India played and when India batted, the freezer in the dressing room was in danger, because he would walk up to the freezer, open the door, take water out, bang it back, and I'm sure the organizers had to change a few freezers over a 5-day test match. So I was standing up and watching Virendra Sehwag bat, and he kept hitting over the top, and then he smashed one straight down to mid-off. I remember John sending a message at the start of the over, telling that it's a small total, we needed to win, so just play, just settle down and get to the end of it. But as you know, Viru, he had his own ways of playing, and he smashed it straight into the hands of mid-off, and he walked up the dressing room, and we were all sitting. I didn't even look at Viru because I knew what John was thinking. And suddenly I got up and saw John not next to me. I didn't even realize what was going on in the dressing room. And the match got over, we won by 6 wickets, and at the end, it was a convincing win for India. I went back to the dressing room at the end of the game, and I went around the dressing room congratulating everyone. And there was an absolute pin of silence in the dressing room. So I went up to Anil and said, "What's happened? Everybody's so quiet. We've just beaten Sri Lanka. It's as if that we've lost by 6 wickets." He said, "No, you come out, I'll tell you something." So he took me out. He took me out and said, "John Wright has punched Virendra Sehwag." I said, "What?" Then I went into the dressing room, and I saw Viru in that corner fixing his bat up. I was expecting a bit of blood on his cheeks. He was absolutely fine, and he was cleaning his cricket bat. So I took Anil out and asked, "Punched mean what? Are you joking or are you serious?" He said, "No." When Virendra Sehwag walked into the dressing room, John Wright caught him by his collar and took him into the corner of the wall and said, "You're never going to play for India again, because that shot would lose the cricket match for us." And I was just outside the dressing room watching the game. I didn't know how to react. We finished, we packed, and we got into the team bus. I used to sit in front, and John on the third row, and Virendra Sehwag was right at the back. So I went up to John and sat next to him and said, "Coach, what's this punching story going on?" He said, "No, it's all fine, don't worry." I said, "I know it's all fine because there's no noise being made and nobody's been talking about it. But did you actually punch Virendra Sehwag?" He said, "Yes, I did." And then I asked him, "Did he punch you back?" And he said, "No, he dare do that." I said, "Oh God, you're punching a grown-up boy and you expect not to punch him back." So I didn't ask him too many questions, and everything finished. We reached the hotel in London, and as everyone went down the bus, I sat on my first chair, and everyone went down one by one, and Virendra Sehwag was the last man to come out. And I told him, "Sit next to me." So he sat next to me, and I said, "Did John Wright punch you?" He said, "Who told you?" I said, boss, I'm supposed to know. I'm captain of your team. I was about 10 meters away from you, so somebody must have come and told me. He said, yeah, Skip, don't worry, it's fine. It happens. I played a shit shot. He was angry. He punched me. We shook hands and it was fine. You know, he went down the bus and he went into the St. James's Court Hotel, and I sat in the bus for next 10 minutes. And to be honest, I was happy and not sad. I said, I think we are becoming a good side. And I came back to the hotel and I went straight to Sachin's room and said, Sach, I feel we are becoming a good team. He said, why? What makes you feel that? He said, you must have heard about the punching story in the dressing room. He said, yeah, I saw it. I was in one corner having a cup of tea when John caught him by the collar. And I said, I asked Viru. Viru said, no, it's no problem, everything is fine. And I asked John, he said, everything is fine, there's no issues, and there's been punching going on in the dressing room.